Hi, and welcome to one of our bonus videos for the Rivals of Ixalan pre-release. I'm joined by Melissa DeTora, Evan Erwin, and LoadingReadyRun's own Adam Savadan, and we're going to talk about cool stuff that happened during the pre-release and cards that we thought were particularly exciting. Evan, start us off.
Oh boy. Well, I had a deck that basically ran better than it had any right to. My mana base, and if you go back and look at the deck tech and you look at my mana base, you're just like, what happened there? I basically kind of drew perfect on my mana. I hit the Tron.
You Tron me like 2 times.
Plains, the forest, and the mountain, basically every single game. Every single game. Somehow, because, and here's what you should never do, ladies and gentlemen, which is, I had Atsukan Seer. This is the green, white, and generic mana for a 2/3 that taps for any color of mana. And you can sack it to get a dinosaur back from your graveyard to your hand. And that's a super cool card. Never splash your fixers. That's like a rule of Magic. You don't,
oh, no.
You don't cross that line.
Evan, I had no idea.
You greedy man.
I was so greedy.
I had no idea either.
I had no idea. Now I'm even madder.
And yet somehow, when you get perfect mana, who cares? Yeah. Because that's how it works.
That's how it works.
Another thing is when you're playing a 3-color deck, playing a colorless land is probably not the best idea.
Oh my god, this is getting worse.
You see? Like, Arch of Oraska is a really cool sealed card, particularly in 2-color builds, but in 3-color builds, you're just asking for trouble, but who cares? Because, you know, it all works. And it's a neat card because once you have a send, it's 5 tap and draw a card, and that's amazing. Yeah. And, you know, and that's super cool.
That is very good.
In your 3-color deck, though.
Yeah.
Oh, it's very greedy.
So I was super greedy.
But did you have Evolving Wilds?
I did not. Yes, and I had Evolving Wilds.
Oh, okay.
I had one Evolving
Wilds. That makes it much better.
You had an Evolving Wilds?
Actually, now that I think of it, it was... No, I did not. I apologize. Oh. I just ran perfect. As you do.
As you do.
As you do. Well, there was a few cards that I really enjoyed. Watley, Radiant Champion. This is a heck of a Planeswalker because... Usually, Planeswalkers that don't automatically sort of protect themselves are seen as bad. Yeah. It's like, well, it doesn't make a creature, it doesn't kill a creature, it doesn't stop something from attacking you or whatever. But when you add like 37 loyalty to it, it doesn't really matter what they're doing. You're just going to be able to fire off the ultimate and draw cards, which, by the way, is a May ability. You don't have to draw cards. You just draw them when you feel like it. Because you add that with Tendershoot Dryad, which this card, it's just the Verdant Force you always wanted because it's 5 mana. When I played it against Adam, we had, what, 2 turns?
Yeah, something like that. It was like
2-turn scoop?
Yeah, because I mean your opponent plays it. Well, he played it on turn 4 because he drew perfect.
Clearly,
and then played his mana accelerant. And it's like your opponent plays it, and I'm just looking at this thing, and I'm like, you get it every upkeep? It's on my upkeep or every upkeep?
Every upkeep. Every single one.
I'm so dead. And I'm thinking of my blue-green deck where I have no fight cards. I'm just like, I can't kill it. It's just going to keep making things, and I'm going to die. I'm just going to go to the next game.
Well, I remember looking and I was just like, okay, blue-green, he's mono merfolk. What can they do about it? Tap it down. Don't care. Slam it on turn 4. Go. Yeah. And he just read it, looked at it, read it, went through a couple turns. Yeah, we're done. It's amazing. I could definitely see this thing hitting constructed play, if only because it's just a non-stop monster. I can only imagine this thing in multiples has to just be filthy.
Oh, that's so gross.
No. Can you imagine?
Because the +2/+2 would reference to each card, right?
Wow.
So you get these 5/5 sapperlings every upkeep?
That's insane. So yeah, that turned out to be just as good as advertised, or at least as I thought it would be.
Yeah.
Temple Altasaur was another one of my rares. Good thing I could, 10% of my deck was rares. Temple Altasaur is a pretty awesome monster with all the Enrage abilities. I feel like the Enrage abilities even got better with this set than it did in the last one. For example, there was one that dealt 5 damage to creatures. There's Needletooth Raptor in Rage. It's just a 4-mana 2/2, but when it's dealt damage, it deals 5 damage to a creature an opponent controls. So it's a way for you to get an extra piece of removal without being a piece of removal, while it also attacks and blocks. And of course, Altasaur just allowed me to essentially Alpha Strike. Yeah. In one of those games where it's like...
It's very hard to block.
Right, what's you going to do?
It's just like, okay, I don't think there's much I can do.
It doesn't matter what your power numbers are. They just turn into 1.
Yeah.
And with all that leverage, you're able to really kind of push it over the edge. And of course, there was the Bombard herd across the world. Kill it.
So what happened there? If you missed the pre-release?
If you missed the pre-release, we were on game 2, Evan and I had mulled to 5, and I was on the play, and then I played the Merfolk Mistbinder, I think it is, the Merfolk Lord into Kamena.
And boy, was I feeling confident.
And then Evan untaps on turn 3, I think. Yeah, he plays the 3rd land and then goes to bombard Kamena.
And I wasn't like deal 4 damage. I wasn't like bombard it. I was like, kill it. Kill it.
Kill it. Oi. It's a 3/5.
Body.
Oh my! Oh, my stomach hurts. Oh, reel back.
Well, it does say 2-4 right on the card.
Yeah.
Right
It
on
does.
the card. I was looking at those numbers.
Yeah.
And I was so happy
Which
about
led
it.
to a pretty great series of events on stream. My actually favorite part was your gasp. Graham pointed out too is how you, after you realized what had happened, you took the bombard and just slowly moved it to your graveyard,
Just gave the audience that look of like,
And-
I'm sorry.
and
I'm
Ruben
sorry.
saying, "My stomach hurts. My stomach hurts," over and over again. I feel sick.
I was watching on stream and I missed the beginning of that play, but all I saw was a bombard next to the Kumina and then the Mistbinder, and I was like, wait. Did what happen? Did that really
Did you
just
think
happen?
what happened?
Is that what I think just did that really happen? And then everyone's laughing, and I'm like, okay, yep.
Yeah.
I know
Yeah, I
what
can hear them
happened.
laughing outside the studio, you know, sort of
Yeah.
as it hit the rest of the people watching. And had I been really clever, I would have been able to follow it up. Well, maybe not really clever, but at least I'd been able to kill it with a Talani's Crown. This card has been quite the MVP. This card kills X1s that your opponent controls. It gives you a huge advantage if something has evasion, particularly the new Hexproof Flyer, which I think some other people like Ari Lax was always like, this is going to be a problem. I'm like, well, I mean, it's a Hexproof guy with a bonus on it. Like, that's always going to be something.
Yeah.
But ultimately, I saw this card do so much work in so many different types of decks and so many different types of situations.
Well, because like the dealing 1 damage is like all upside if it
Right.
goes onto a dinosaur,
Right.
right? Even a dinosaur with kind of a crummy enrage is still like whatever. Still, I get a free effect.
Right, and when you have the Needletooth Raptor, and you're like, okay, I will turn it into a 5/2, and I dealt 5 damage to your best thing.
Feels
That's
like
amazing.
with this set, turning on Enrage is both easier and way more rewarding.
Yeah, there are
There's
a lot more payoffs
way better
in
Enrage
this
cards.
set, especially
yeah.
at common.
Right.
Yeah.
So overall, sometimes you run straight perfect, and sometimes you punt super hard while you're running straight perfect, and it all works out as it turns out. And lastly, I want to talk about Mutiny, which is a super awesome common, which feels like the creatures fight each other, but they don't. It's really just A fights B.
Yeah.
But again, they don't fight. It just deals the damage. So that to me was a couple times where, and even my opponents were expecting like to scoop both creatures up.
Okay, so this is similar to, and I don't remember the name of the card, but it was like another red sorcery, and it was just like it required your opponent to have 2 creatures and they would fight each other, but it was like much more expensive.
Oh yeah, it was from Shadows over Innistrad, I think.
Yeah, exactly. And
Oh, right.
and I
It was like
remember-
4 mana or something.
Yeah, it was like 4
Right.
mana, and I looked at it and I was like, this seems like it would be rad. And then, like, over the course of that pre-release weekend, I was like testing it out against a bunch of people, and I was like, I think Marshall was pre-release, and I was like, Marshall, I don't think this card's very good. He was like, yeah, it's 4 mana, and they need to have 2 creatures, otherwise it just is a dud.
Yeah.
But I think taking that to 1 mana makes it like, you can do this, and still play something else in a turn. Also, I feel like this format, this is a better home for it because there's lots of creatures. These are much more like go wide tribal decks where you have like 4 merfolk at a time and stuff like that, right?
And remember, kids, it's a sorcery.
Yeah.
There was a couple times during the broadcast where we were
That
just
card would be
like,
so absurd if it was a
during
instant.
combat step, mutiny. Like, no, that's not how that works.
That card would be like a mythic if it was instant.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
It would be silly.
I think people are getting it confused with the instant that deals 2 to your creature and 4 to theirs, because they're both 1 mana spells.
Another great
And-
enrager enabler.
Yep.
Yeah.
They both target 2 things, so they're really similar.
Right.
Yeah, but your opponent needs to have
But
2
very
creatures
different.
in play to even resolve this, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
But it doesn't seem like such a big ask in this format.
Right. So overall, what I found was I thought that Watley Radiant Champion, if you are even or ahead, is insane. It's one of those planeswalkers that's not very good when you're behind, and that's okay.
Yeah.
I found she got a lot more loyalty than I was expecting. She really boosted up there, and Tindershoot Dryad to me felt like a constructed worthy card.
Wow, that's amazing. So it's like, because Dryad is not like a super relevant type,
Right.
but it doesn't matter.
No.
Not when it makes a creature every single turn. It starts making 3/3s every turn, and
Good,
starts making
good in
5/5s
Commander.
multiples.
Every
that's-
upkeep you get.
Every person's upkeep.
Yeah.
Thanks for the 1/1s with these
Yeah.
3/3s.
That's bonkers.
Yeah, it's super
That's
good.
bonkers in Commander.
So that was my pre-release deck.
Can I talk about another Enrage card? My promo card that came in my pack was Trapjaw Tyrant,
Yeah.
which is like we've described several of these cards, quite bonkers as an Enrage target. Whenever Trapjaw Tyrant is dealt damage, exile target creature any opponent controls until Trapjaw Tyrant leaves the battlefield. This card is rad. It's so good. However, I think I found like the one corner case where it's not very good. When I was playing against Graham in our super long first match, I had looked at his hand, so I knew he had a bounce spell in hand. And you were the table friend for this game.
Yeah,
And basically, I had no good targets to like. I couldn't really attack with Trapjaw Tyrant because, like if I got to like exile a creature, Graham was just going to bounce it back to my hand, and all of his creatures had ETB effects. Like the literal best thing
right.
that could happen was that he was going to draw a card, and I was like, no, we're like even in the race. I don't want you to draw more mana. So I was like, so he bounced. So eventually I was like, fine. He drew a card. We had a raid creature that would he got it into my hand originally. Like I played it, and then he attacked. I blocked, exiled one of his dudes that drew him a card. He had a raid creature that he attacked and would bounce a creature, so he bounced my Trapjaw Tyrant. And I was like, I can't replay that because literally my best outcome is that he draws another card. So I had to like play like little dudes instead. So like that's the one corner case. It was not good against like an aggressive value.
Otherwise, this card is bananas.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, it's bonkers unless you're playing Graham Stark's very specific deck. But I think that's funny that we found the one case where it's like, I actually don't want to have this on the battlefield right now because I'm going to get goozled.
Basically, you just want this with the Dinosaur Forerunner. Just start
yeah.
exiling all their stuff. That
yeah,
Forerunner is so good.
All the Forerunners
All the
were great.
Forerunners are. I think, but I
the
definitely
Dinosaur
think the
one.
Dinosaur is the best one.
Not even close.
Yeah.
Because it not
it
only
enables
gets your
rage
dude.
and it like.
It's their team.
Yeah, it hits their whole team. Like
Right.
you can, if you play 2 dinosaurs in turn, it's just like a pyroclasm. Like it's good.
Well, and especially if you're like against vampires or something like that.
But imagine doing like even in draft, like doing this and then like play Forerunner and then get like the Raging Swordtooth from Ixalan, and you're just like your opponent's like, oh, they know that the Raging Swordtooth is coming and they're dealing 2 damage to all their creatures, and it's like, okay, well.
The
it's coming.
Pyroclasm is coming, and this is going to survive.
And it's attached to a 5/5, and the 1/3 survives it. But yeah, all the Forerunners are super sweet. Like being able to, you'd think like normally a tutor attached to a creature would be like kind of whatever. Especially, I'm just talking in draft. Like I mean, obviously in constructed formats is going to be pretty good, but you'd think in draft. But in this set, it felt like it was just easily doable. Like even I had the Merfolk, like the Merfolk deck I played, I had the Forerunner, and every time I played it, I was just like, oh, I get to go get Kamena, like pretty much every time.
And it's a +1/+1 counter, right?
Yeah, well, every time a Merfolk enters the battlefield, it gets a +1/+1 counter. And there was like a turn there where I made it like a 6/5 in one turn. And it was just like, okay.
Yeah, that's terrific. I mean, all of them felt good, and all of them felt like it really shored up a lot of what the sealed or I can imagine the draft format's going to feel like, which was it really just gels together a lot of the tribes to help get your best card.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you have to remember it just goes on to the top of your library. So, like, if you're like kind of boned on mana, maybe it's not the best play to do. But if you're just like, I think the worst one is probably the vampire one because it's when another vampire enters the battlefield, target creature gets +1/+1 till end of turn. So like it's not like it doesn't like it gives you some advantage, but it's basically it's great if you're an aggressive deck and if you're in an aggressive start. But if you're like, it can certainly help you like shore up your defenses, but it's more like. It doesn't give you any kind of like long-term benefit like the other ones do. Like if you trigger Enrage, you can, possibly get some other creatures off the board or something like that. A +1/+1 counter makes your dudes bigger forever, but this is just till end of turn. But I did like that I could get like my Legion Lieutenant. And when you combine that +1/+1 with the other things that happen, like, the dinky vampire suddenly becomes a 4/4 and suddenly I have a very viable attack that you have really not a whole lot to do with. So,
And often they have lifelink.
So my deck also had a Forerunner. I had Forerunner of Legion as well, which a card that we've been calling Vampiric Tutor all weekend. And I found it to be great when you're ahead, but pretty bad when you're behind. And like in my matches, I was behind quite a bit. But my favorite play with it was searching for Sanguine Glorifier, which is a 3/3 that puts a +1/+1 counter on another vampire you control.
Ooh.
So I would, and it curves out perfectly because you play the 3-mana one, then you play the 4-mana one, and then you play it, put the counter on the Forerunner, and then it triggers, giving it +1/+1, and then you get to attack for 4.
Yeah.
Yeah. So like again, you have to be ahead for that to be favorable for you, because if you're behind, you can't really attack, and then you feel kind of silly.
Definitely felt there's way more payoff cards for being in the tribes.
Right.
Rather than Ixalan, where it was like, Ixalan, you were in a tribe, but it didn't feel like it. There was no like stuff like this, kind of like not a lot of it anyway. I mean, there's like Anointed Deacon and that rewarded you for being in vampires, but like
There was some payoffs, but it felt like they really pushed the payoffs. in
Yes,
this
feel
set.
a lot
absolutely.
better
Right.
here
Yep.
than
Yeah.
they did.
Definitely
in Ixalan.
more tribal payoffs and rivals.
I guess we didn't have pirates represented at the pre-release, but I don't know how.
Chris Van Meter had some pirates, so he had a really aggressive pirate curve, and his
Oh,
payoff
right.
was
Yeah,
the
I forgot
4-mana
about Chris's deck.
2/3 creature that had attacking pirates get +2/+0.
Yeah.
And that card doesn't need to attack.
Yeah.
That
Right,
card
right.
just hangs out, pumping
Yeah.
your pirates forever.
Yeah, you can just play it and then attack, and then they're all +2/+0 till end of turn.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, that card's not really fair. But of course, Angarth wasn't really fair either.
I mean, planeswalkers are by their very nature sort of game state warping.
Oh, so Angrath. So I have a lot of experience playing against that card because against Chris Van Meter, he beat me both games with it.
Yeah.
Oh,
So the first game, we both had Rekindling Phoenix in play, and they just cancel each other out. You attack, they block, you both get the 1/1, you both get the Phoenix back. But I was at 8 life, and we both had a Phoenix staring each other down, and he drew Angrath.
Oh,
and
no.
then he just stole my Phoenix and just won the game.
oh.
So that was kind of sad.
I'm gonna take your Phoenix.
Yep, I
Can I attack you for 8?
I will die.
Angrath. What just happened?
He did miss the cool play in Talani's Crown on your 0-1 at
Yeah,
one point.
yeah. He could have done a different play that game. He could have attacked Phoenix into Phoenix. I would have blocked because I was at such low life. And then when I got the token, the 0/1 token, he could have played
Tillinoli.
Tillinoli's
Yeah.
Crown
Yeah.
on my creature, dealing it 1 damage and killing it so I could never get the Phoenix back. And then he would have gone on to win easily from there. But turns out Angrath won the game anyway, so that was not relevant.
Good grief. Can I talk about Dark Inquiry? Which is like, it's just like a little 3-mana common. But boy, was that card ever useful. It was really just like, if I didn't have any other viable play, just being like, you know, Ruben was like, oh, what an interesting card I just drew. And I had like 6 mana, so I was like, oh, I could play like a 5-drop, or I can play like a 3-drop. Or I think I Dark Inquired in a Pirate's Cutlass. I was like, or I can see what he just drew that's so darn interesting and just put down a Pirate's Cutlass. So I opted to do that, and I was never disappointed by seeing what was in their hand. So here's something interesting, because you keep talking about, oh, what should I do? I've just drew an interesting card. So let's see what that card is, Dark
Oh,
Inquiry.
bother. Okay, well, I'll tell you. I'll
Well,
show
I
you
mean-
what the interesting card is.
Okay.
The interesting card was Squire's Devotion.
And just pitching any non-land card is pretty good, because like previously you see this
feels-
effect like creatures.
It feels like as synergistic as the set is, cards like that go up in value because you
Yeah.
get to look at their hand and disrupt whatever they're trying to do. Like they have some lord or some card that lets them tutor something and get it out of their hand. So
I mean, the Thoughtseize being 3 times as expensive is still,
Oh, yeah.
it's still Thoughtseize.
Yeah.
And it's still a powerful magic card, particularly in Sealed when they really rely on their bombs, they rely on their super huge synergistic cards, and you're like, yeah,
You know,
thanks.
or people are doing things like keeping like kind of a mediocre hand if it has a Forerunner in it, because then they can go get a better card and like start building up their board
Yeah.
and stuff like that. And it's like, or I could just take that from you.
yeah,
Yeah, I think Dark Inquiry is a stronger card at the pre-release than in other environments because you get an extra rare. People don't know the set as well, so like they're going to play a little bit slower. There's going to be more like board stalls, so they're going to be relying on bomb rares and just powerful synergy cards. But in draft, like your deck is like just faster, more synergistic, and you don't have time to cast something like a Dark Inquiry.
Right.
So I definitely recommend if you're going to the pre-release to play Dark Inquiry. but I don't think it's as good in draft as it is in sealed.
Interesting. So maybe like if you know, like if you see somebody game one and they're like, they have like these huge bombs, but they need to like ramp into them and stuff like that. Like maybe it's like, and I would have a way to deal with them. That's when you maybe bring it in. Just be like, if I can get out of your hand, that's my only chance of dealing with it, right? But if you resolve it, I'm kind of dead. Like that kind of situation.
Yeah, definitely. Especially because you're playing black anyway if you have access to this card, and you probably already have cards like Impale or Contract Killing or just ways to remove stuff. So you usually don't need Dark Inquiry, but if they have a Planeswalker or the Immortal Sun or stuff like that, that black has a harder time dealing with, then you're going to want that card.
I'm not looking forward to having to play against Immortal Sun, I'll tell you that much.
But it shuts down your Planeswalkers.
They
It
can't-
shuts down their
Their
Planeswalkers.
Their Engrath can't do anything anymore.
Their Ingrath can't kill
It's
you.
a 5-mana plane.
Oh, that card is... Oh.
Currency, I don't think anybody opened one, as I recall.
No.
We didn't actually get to see it in
We
action.
didn't get to see it.
But
No.
man, it sure is powerful.
I'm putting that directly, like, as soon as I find one, like, if I open it or, like, you know, like at a pre-release or a draft or thing, it's going directly into, like, my commander deck.
Like every commander deck,
Yeah.
that card's going to be in it, pretty much.
Like,
Ooh,
yeah,
that
6
thing's
mana is a lot,
absurd.
but boy, not having to deal with super friends, I feel like it's worth it.
And you're drawing cards, your stuff is cheaper, your creatures are huge. That seems fantastic.
Yeah, yeah. They definitely. I feel like this
Hurts to
card.
look at.
I feel like this card is pushed a little bit because it's like, because like Anthem spells normally you're at least paying a few mana for, and you just get all of this other good stuff that's worthwhile.
Yeah.
It's pretty expensive though.
It is expensive. Also, by the time it's turn 6 and you play it, you probably have already played most of your spells, which makes the spells you cast cost 1 less a little bit less relevant. But it will take over the game if you have it in play for a few turns because you're going to be getting value every turn.
Yeah.
Drawing extra cards.
Yeah, I like commander games typically, like at least the commander games I'm in usually go pretty long, so like I can see a lot of value for that. Of just like
Oh yeah, this is great in Commander.
that's where I
I would
put it.
expect most Commander decks to just play one of these.
Oh yeah.
So how did the reverse Snapcaster Mage work out for you?
Yeah. So I had a Dire Fleet Daredevil in my pool, which can be really good, especially if you're playing against a deck that plays removal spells, because you can just get a body and then kill one of their things. It's a pretty great 2-for-1. It didn't really work out so well for me, but one interesting play that I had in my game against Graham, so I was losing the game, and I was holding the Dire Fleet Daredevil forever, and there was no good target for it, so I just sat in my hand for turns. And the turn before I was going to die, Graham played an Explore creature, I think it was a J-Light Ranger, and he revealed Run Aground, which was
Man.
basically like the card I needed to be in the graveyard.
Yeah.
And so the card didn't help him at all because he was already winning. He didn't need a removal spell. So there was a chance he could have put it in his graveyard. And I was like, oh my god, if he puts this card in his graveyard, I can actually come back in this game.
Yeah, we were all watching and we were like, oh my god,
but-
oh my god.
He kept it on top.
No.
Oh.
And my Dire Fleet Daredevil didn't do anything.
Yeah.
But still a great card, and it's usually pretty useful, especially like in sealed. I imagine people are going to be playing decks that are heavy on removal, like
Oh yeah,
Black
that
decks
card
and-
would have destroyed me with all the removal I was running.
yeah,
But
definitely,
It was just a very awkward matchup for you because I think Graham only had like 2 spells in his deck,
yeah.
which I don't think is actually all that common in sealed.
Not really, unless you're playing the blue-green deck, which is just like really heavy on like creatures and pump spells, which are not good plays at sorcery speed.
Yeah.
Off of the Daredevil.
Yeah.
All I know is if that thing had flash, it would have done disgusting things to modern and maybe vintage. I don't know if it's going to do anything currently, but like it would have created a really weird world of Snapcaster, anti-Snapcaster, I Snapcaster your Snapcaster stuff, in response to your Snapcaster, I steal it, you know? It would have been really silly.
It's still pretty cool in something like the Burn Mirror.
Oh my god. Yeah, nice sideboard card.
Even like
It's still a 2-1 with first strike. It's not completely dead in draft.
it's
and, like,
not.
No,
But
it's
in draft,
good.
even in
Yeah.
draft and sealed, like in this set, like there's so many good targets. Like at common, like there's all the black common removal. There's like two or three pieces of black common removal. There's 2 pieces of like red. There's mutiny and bombardment in red. Isn't Hunt the Week in the set in green?
Yeah.
Hunt
And Hunt the Week and Pounce is in this set.
Hunt the Week, Pounce is it Pounce reprinted or is it Pounce just in Ixalan?
I am
think
not sure.
You're not sure?
Yeah.
Okay. And then like even blue, like there's that 3 mana ascend card. The
Oh, yeah.
the
The
draw 3,
divination.
yeah, the
Draw cards.
divination or draw 2, like there's bounce spells. There's all kinds of. I think this card's just very good.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
correct.
It's good. It's
Because
just
your
not,
opponent's
like,
gonna be playing
busted.
some kind of a spell.
Right. Oh yeah, it feels always good. I was thinking like constructed, super high-powered formats.
Yeah.
This is the type of ability that if you have the wrong keywords, things go awry.
Yeah, could you imagine this thing had flash?
That's what I'm saying. Like you countered your thing, okay, I'll play this and counter your thing. Like it's just,
Oh my god.
yeah, it's pretty filthy. So in some ways, I appreciate Wizards not putting flash on this card.
You're welcome.
Was there a discussion about it at
No.
all? No. Yeah.
Nice. No, no, completely no. Okay, great. Well, flash in red anyway is not the most common type ability, is it?
No.
Flash, red does not get flash.
Right.
So that would not even have been a thing.
Right.
But taking other people's stuff is very red. So
Yep.
Right.
so I have this is maybe not like the like I don't think I ever pulled off any amazingly sick plays with this, but I did open a Ravenous Chupacabra, which is a 2/2 for 4, so it's the same as Impale. And it's destroy target creature and opponent controls, but you also just get a 2/2 Beast Horror. Boy, what a good card that is.
Dude, I had to when I saw this card in the spoilers, I had to reread it like 6 times. I went as soon as I saw it, I went to our we have a Loading Ready Run Slack, and I just went right into the Magic channel. I was like, "Is this card for real? Like, is this a real thing? Is there any downside? Like,
There is
was
literally
also-
no downside.
It was the mythic uncommon.
Yeah.
Everyone's pool. Only one was open.
Only one was open.
I guess the downside is sometimes your opponent doesn't have a creature.
But no, but it doesn't have a downside because it doesn't destroy target creature. It destroys an opponent controls target creature. So even if you play it on empty board, it's not going to kill itself.
But
Yeah.
you're so sad.
Well, yeah, you're still sad.
You're
Still
paying
get a
4 mana
two-two.
for a
Yeah,
2/2.
you're losing a lot of value there.
Right.
I mean,
Go ahead.
if my opponent had an empty board and the only creature I had was a Ravenous Chupacabra, I'd
Just hold
probably
it.
just hold it.
Yeah, you know. You
Oh
don't
yeah.
play it. You just go past.
Yeah, you're
Go ahead.
not going to play. Yeah. Oh no, I would feel terrible to just play that on an empty board.
No. But this is the type of card I could see in maybe a different world, which said destroy target creature, and then you play it, and they somehow sack their own creature for some reason, and then you have to kill your Chupacabra, and that's a feel bad. No, this is just good old fashioned all upside best Necrotal I've seen in a long time.
Yeah.
Murder target thing.
Necrocabra.
I mean, since you're like,
Necrocabra.
does this have like
Necrobatol?
potential in Constructed, or do you think it's a little too slow?
A little too slow. But in limited, I think it's absolutely all star.
Oh, this card is gonna get like first picked so often.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised if it saw constructed play just because of the value of it, and or if you can blink it. Like, that's amazing. If you can bounce it, that's amazing.
Or what if you play the black-green double face card on this guy?
Oh,
That's a lot of value.
Oh no!
the double face card, and again, this is one of the things that kind of snuck up was not only does it flip to make this awesome, reanimate land, it returns the creature that died on top of it. So not only are you able to get it when it comes in, you're able to the enchantment goes away, turns into a land, and the Chupacabra can come back. That's good.
So if you
clean
have a 0-mana sack outlet like Yahenni from Ether Revolt, for
Right.
example, you can play Chupacabra, kill a guy, put the black-green enchantment on it, sacrifice it, return it, kill another guy, then it transforms, then you can sacrifice it again to the Yahenni.
I mean, it's slow, but it's doable.
It's
You're
slow.
still playing like 9
Like-
mana total.
Yeah, you are paying a lot of mana,
Yeah.
but you're only using 3 total cards to just like repeatedly kill creatures every turn.
Yeah, that's amazing. Honestly, that
Didn't you
changed
open
my
that
sleep.
card, Kathleen?
This card, no, Cameron did.
Cameron?
I
did?
absolutely would have splashed for this card had I
Yeah.
opened it. I think Cameron splashed for it
I was
too.
gonna say, I think he did, didn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right,
Yeah.
he did. I didn't see
He
it, but I
did,
saw
yeah.
his forest. I was
Yeah.
like, what the hell?
And what is this in here? Oh. In conclusion, Adam,
Yeah.
do you have any amazingly sick plays aside from reeling in a real big fish?
Your sick 14 Merfolk deck.
Yeah, I felt like this deck let me down a little bit. But I mean, like against Cameron the second game, I shouldn't have kept the hand that I kept. I would like to play first, Cameron.
Okay. I will respect that wish.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, you gonna keep that hand?
Yeah. That was probably my biggest mistake of the day. Because I kept a hand was like, it was like a green 2-drop, a green 3-drop, 2 islands, a blue 4-drop, and something else. And I was like, I have 9 forests in my deck, but I was on the play. So responsibly, I should have mulliganed that. but I was like, I'm rolling the dice because that's my problem when I play Magic, because I just love rolling the dice too much and I lose a lot for it. But yeah, it didn't come through. Didn't end too well, but I mean, like, okay. I made my bed, now I had to sleep in it, so. As far as sick plays, not really. I don't think so.
I think you just played Kamena when you could play Kamena.
I never even got to do anything with Kamena. I got to make him unblockable once. and then after that,
I mean, when you see a creature like Kamena, it is just like...
There's a lot of text. And
people like look at that and they're like, I should remove that.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like,
I mean, it's fair. Like, I didn't expect to be like, doing all this cool stuff with Kamena. I'm like, yeah, I'll draw so many cards and I'll put counters on all my merfolk. It's like, no, I'll probably like get to draw a card off him before somebody kills him. Yeah.
Or plays
I mean, there was
there
an instance too, like where I was playing against Cameron and I had Kamena and 2 other merfolk in play, and Cam just killed my Kamena, and I was like, I had the option to draw a card, but I mean, like, I was so far behind on board. Like, if I tapped all my stuff, he just would have hit me for like 9.
I remember watching that game, and people were like, why isn't he like drawing a card? And it's like, because he didn't want to die.
Even still, I was only at, like, I was at 14 or something.
Mm-hmm.
But it's like, even if I had tapped down everything, I would have been at like 3, and it's just like, that game's just over. Against Cameron's like aggressive vampire deck, like, I can't afford to just like not block, or at least try to.
Yeah. The upside to Kamena, if somebody like puts like a passivism effect, like a luminous bombs or something on them, you can still use all his abilities.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yep.
I mean, I didn't have any shuffle effects in my deck, but the, God, I can't remember the name of it. So, sorry, just give me a second.
It's the Brainstorm merfolk, isn't it?
Yeah.
Brainstorm?
Brainstorm. Riverwise Augur. That felt good every time I casted it.
You should have seen Cam's face when he realized what it did.
Yeah. Because it was like, I actually have a funny story about Brainstorm and how I didn't realize how good it was until the Unstable pre-release, and Wedge explained to me why it was so good. But the fact that it's so good is you draw 3 cards, you don't reveal them, and you don't even show them what you're putting back on top. And that's the part that I didn't get. And I was like, wow, doing it felt really good, and it's attached to a 2/2 body, so I mean, like, that helps a little bit, but at the same time, it did feel kind of bad knowing sometimes, in some situations, where I'm like, I have to put 2 of these back. And none of them really helped me get out of this jam.
Is this a cycle in Rivals of Ixalan? Because we were talking about the Chupacabra, which is a 2/2 for 4, but you get to kill a creature when it enters the battlefield. This is a 2/2 for 4. When it enters the battlefield, you get to Brainstorm.
Oh, yeah.
So is there like a cycle of like uncommon creatures that
Red
are
and
like
green?
a sort of like a semi-okay body, but stapled to a very powerful effect?
This was not meant to be a cycle.
Was it just a 2?
Just a coincidence, I guess.
Okay.
It's just terrific.
Yeah.
Is all it is.
Yeah, it's great.
It's just fantastic.
It's a nice payoff.
Yeah, so about the value you get from this guy, if you compare this card to other cards very similar to in the past, like the one from Kaladesh, 4-mana 2/2 ETB draw card, this is just...
Way better.
It's just... like, it's slightly better. Like, if you don't have a shuffle effect, it's similar. You get more information, but you're still drawing the 2 cards you put back again, you know? So it's similar.
But it doesn't take much.
Yeah, but it's a little better.
Right. It's just like Brainstorm way back in the day when I first started, which was, yeah, you're still probably going to have to draw those 2 cards as back in Ice Age, but like you're still drawing 3 cards and you're putting the worst 2 back, so okay.
Yeah.
Or you're hiding things from people at instant speed, whereas that doesn't really happen with this card, but again, Brainstorm is as Brainstorm does. You have Traveler's Antlet, you have Evolving Wilds, you have ways of
your
shuffling.
like Forerunners.
Exactly.
So you draw 3, you draw a Forerunner off this. Next turn you play it, you get to go looking for another creature and shuffle away the 2 probably land that you didn't care about.
Yeah.
There's enough ways to shuffle your deck, I think.
Yeah.
Overall, I think Rivals did a terrific job at just highlighting and pushing forward more of the tribal mechanics, making all of the tribes more unique and or powerful, and I thought it was terrific.
They definitely felt a lot more powerful. Like, every tribe was doing very strong things.
Do you have any like particularly sick plays that you enjoyed making?
Oh, sick plays? I mean, like I mentioned earlier, like the sickest plays usually just involve the Forerunner. But like I didn't have as many options of cards to search for as you did in your deck. Like I only either had the thing that puts a counter on something or the 1/3 flyer, which was actually just like really valuable. Most of my sickest plays involved a combat trick, Moment of Triumph. It's just like it's just a really efficient card, especially when you're behind, because you can use it to save one of your creatures and gain 2 life. So you just gain tempo with it. and it was one of the cards that I liked a lot for my deck.
That was a very good card. I would have
Yeah.
liked to have had one in my deck because, frequently it's just removal.
It's weird that like 2 life is so important. At least it feels like in this format.
Oh, yeah.
You know, like it felt very much like it was a very swingy type. You know, tempo. You know, I got to get ahead somehow, and this really gets you ahead. Even if it's just 10% of your total life, your starting life total, it's enough.
Well, especially because I stabilized at 3 life, right? So 2, you can go a long way on 1 or 2 life, especially when generally the creatures are a lot smaller, especially if
Yeah.
you're fighting the merfolk and the vampire, the pirates.
Yeah,
and
like
stuff.
you've got 3 tribes that are just kind of small creatures butting up against each other. With the except dinosaurs obviously trumps them in size, but I mean these combat tricks start getting a lot better when you have 3. A lot of the set is just little creatures kind of bumping up against each other, and you can get so much more. There's that 2 mana green +1/+1 you draw a card or something.
Yep, aggressive urge.
Yeah,
Yep.
that one's pretty good because the creatures are all similar size, and your opponent's just like, okay, I'll trade. And you're
Right,
like,
a lot
no,
of
no,
T3s,
no, I kill your
No,
creature,
I get
and
to draw a card.
Yeah, and I get to draw a card. So
Yeah,
it's just like,
it's a sweet card.
yeah.
Right.
So Moment of Triumph is great in a black-white deck because the black-white Vampires deck usually has ways to damage itself. Like the Elvish Visionary card, the name escapes me. But,
Oh yeah, I really liked it. It was the
The Black Elves.
I want to say
Visionary.
Dusk Legion something, but that's probably wrong.
Dusk Legion Zealot.
Oh.
You were
Oh, yeah.
Wow. Yeah, great. And also, Black White is a vampire deck, and sometimes you really want to play a 3/3 for 3, so the pirate that has lose 2 life when it enters the battlefield. And just there's just ways where you can, where you're losing life, Adanto Vanguard
I think so.
was another one where you're going to be paying life a lot.
Right. Dusk Legion Zealot, though, I mean, it was terrific every single time I saw it. That card is awesome.
Yeah, this card's great. It's going to be a staple in multiple formats. It's, look at Elvish Visionary. This is not much worse Elvish Visionary.
Right.
And it's in a color that doesn't really have a lot of access to value creatures.
Yeah,
Yeah.
if you're looking at this and saying, but I lose a life, and that's the huge downside, because you just said how important gaining 2 life was. It's no, this is fine. This is very good. You want to, black drawing cards, it's a very fair payoff, honestly.
And getting a 1/1 left behind too.
Yeah.
Yeah,
great.
Phyrexian Rager was a constructed card in most formats it was in. I remember playing it in Standard back during Invasion Block, and it does see play in Pauper as well.
Oh, I've played a lot of Pauper with that card, and I can't wait to play this in Pauper, which seems terrific.
Seems like Pauper got a lot out of this set. There's a lot of very good comments in this set. Yeah.
Good stuff.
Well, I think that about wraps up our discussion of our Rivals of Ixalan pre-release. So thank you so much for joining us, and check out all of the other cool content we have on our YouTube channel. Thanks, everybody. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.